who is standing by. So Diabo, we've obviously outlined quite a bit in that introduction, but what are the key elements that came out of his testimony today?
Well, of course, most of the morning, Nompu was relating to the contract details between Optimum, Colliery and Glencore, as well as Eskom. As you said in that piece, that it's a contract that started from a long time ago and was meant to go on for about 25 years. And in 2018, it was meant to be extended once again. Just before the break, the lunch break, this is where one could perhaps say the juicier details started to come in, because now this is in 2015 when the now former Eskom CEO, Mr. Brian Molefe, came to Eskom to try and help Eskom out after, its leadership issues and so forth. And this is when, I suppose, the real issues started to begin for Glencore and Optimum Coal, because they had all along had been expecting that a fourth addendum agreement in their contract would be honored, which means that they would be able to extend their contract and possibly increase the price. Remember that the price initially was 150 per metric ton, and they were expecting that it would go up by around 480 or around 500 metric tons, and it looked like the board at that time was amenable to that kind of extension. However, comes the 18th of May, a meeting between Mr. Ephron and Mr. Molefe himself in Mr. Molefe's office, where now Mr. Molefe drops the bombshell to Glencore and says, unfortunately, we will not be extending this contract. His last words on the stand, Mr. Ephron, when he was asked how he felt about this revelation, and he simply says, I was devastated.
So, does Mr. Ephron suggest that Mr. Molefe actually frustrated Glencore? Is that the feeling that came out? Because I remember reading papers at the time, and that was the impression that was coming out.
I'm expecting that after the break, Nompu, we will hear succinct details about how now this went about. But from a historical knowledge of covering Eskom for as many months as I have, it looks like Glencore was indeed frustrated under Mr. Brian Molefe, where he said that he did not firstly understand why Glencore had this evergreen contract with Eskom. Evergreen meaning that, it went on for years and years and years, and that they were paying simply too much, and they were not going to pay 530 per ton, 530 rand per ton of coal. Rather, they wanted to continue paying it at 150, which is of course at a loss to Glencore. And this is what ultimately led it to have a go under business rescue for Optimum Colliery and being forced to finally sell it to Tegeta. But we are expecting that after this break, we will hear more details about what went on from the 18th of May in 2015.
And very interestingly, even though Eskom under Mr. Molefe's leadership couldn't afford to raise what they were prepared to pay per metric ton, when it was then went over to Tegeta, they were willing to lend Tegeta close on to 700 million rand so that they could actually purchase the mine, which we've discovered was actually not necessarily lawful.
683 million is the precise amount, Nompu, that Tegeta was given as a prepayment so that it met the conditions of being able to buy the Optimum Colliery so that it could take over that contract. But of course, this is all the kind of evidence that is coming out of this state capture, that at the end of it all, perhaps we will find a link and understand who was wrong, why they were wrong, because Eskom kept on saying that the issue of prepayment is not a new one in business discussions. So we will find out about how this prepayment of 683 million impacted on Optimum's colliery mine.
All right, Diabo, we're going to leave it there and track the story as the day progresses. My colleague Diabo Seto. Nzinga?